just let everyone know when you begin recording.
I just pressed recording, Kevin. I can stop if we need to discuss anything. Basically, I'll follow instructions from the group right now for the recording. If everybody can please mute as usual. Thank you. And please reminder, put your block producer name next to your name so that we can identify you easily. Thank you. And good afternoon, night, everyone.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hi guys.
Good morning, everybody.
Good afternoon, Tel Aviv.
What do you mean morning? It's like late at night.
Good more after evening or whatever it was, Matt.
Yeah.
Night.
Good after more night.
Yeah.
Good after more night. There you
go. Mark, thanks for the agenda items. Looks like we'll be done in 5 minutes.
Let's let's try to gain a little bit of speed on those calls if possible, if we want to do them almost every day.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and it's like ideally the only time we have to all come together is for security updates and things that we all have to coordinate with. But beyond that, like I feel like we don't always have to agree, right? That's the kind of whole point of DPoS. We can do independent things, and people can vote based on our perspectives. But stuff like upgrading the contract, we have to do that together, so it makes sense to do this. So I can understand why some people in the DPoS space are a little concerned, being like, why are these guys meeting in private? That makes no sense at all. And I kind of agree. Like, it doesn't make sense unless we have a security reason that we have to upgrade something quickly. So I feel like we're in that case now with the smart contract, but then the other stuff, I don't know. It's kind of questionable about whether or not we have to meet in person to talk about them.
So we've had 3 days of reasons to meet, 3 back-to-back days. You get the emergency on Saturday morning and then yesterday's thing and now. So I would imagine that this is just the beginning, and yeah, slowly it will be less emergencies day in, day out, right?
I sure hope so, because if not, we got some challenges ahead of us.
We all hope so, guys.
So the block producer traditions proposal is number 3 on the agenda. Is there a volunteer for note taking until we get to number 3 or to next meeting?
I can take notes.
Who was that?
Roman, Crypto Lions.
Thank you, Roman.
And I can do a roll call. Adar Liquidios.
Thank you, Adar.
May I trouble everyone to update their names? So it's your name followed by your block producer name.
And whilst you're updating your block producer name, you can just hit that little mute button on your microphone. We got some very noisy people today. Otherwise, Marc-Antoine. Mute everybody.
Igor, could you check your Telegram?
Hey, yes, I need to wake up better. Listen. I'm checking my Telegram. What is it?
Mark, can you hit the mute all, please?
Good morning.
Good morning, Alex. Feels like it's been forever. It's only been like what, 48 hours? 24 hours?
Yep.
Miss you guys.
Okay. Mark, guys, everyone. Do you think we have everyone here?
I think we should get started. We have a good number of participants. So the proposed agenda quickly, system contract upgrade. Igor, if you can lead this part, at least get it started, then we will support you. Action plan proposal.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark, I'm sorry. I agree with the first agenda item, but could we just try to take roll quickly before we jump in, just so that we can understand who's present?
Sure. Adar?
Adar, you available?
Yep, I'm here. I was just scrolling through the names and doing a manual check. Would you like us to read it off the list? I'm not sure that's the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh, I think you might have cut out, but I'm not sure what is the most efficient. We'll have to figure that out. But maybe for now, we can just in either Keybase or in this chat box, we can just see names. Just kind of scroll through, and then we can offline sort of, or Adar can kind of tally it up. I don't know. I'm just thinking about expediency.
Exactly. Calling one by one, I think will take too long. I'm going to manually do it, and if we think of a more clever way to do it in the future, then we'll switch to that.
Thank you.
It's probably just top 21 you want to get, right? So if top 21 block producers, if you write it in the chat, and then you can see how many we have.
Okay, cool. Noted.
All right, so while this is going, let's start. Igor, if you can lead the system contract upgrade. This is the most important item of the agenda for this call. And then the other items, we will try to time box them a little bit so that we don't go on forever. So Igor, it's all yours.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important for us to define the expiration time in the action that we need to upgrade the system contract. So and then we define this, and while people are doing the actual signature, if we have 15 of the top 21 here in the call that are ready and confident that they can do the signature now, maybe we can do the upgrade within this call, and we don't need to set the expiration for 9 hours ahead. We can just set 1 hour ahead, and if we are confident that we can do it, I think we can. So it would be better to not happen like the last time where we don't have the everyone together and ready to change or fix something. Okay, so
sorry, do we need to provide the new set of keys different to yesterday?
I will
The same
explain. I will
key.
explain everything that's needed. I'm gonna share a blank screen here, and I go on with the commands that we need to do, and how I'm doing it, and how we need to how you can verify that the signatures are the contract hashes are correct. So,
Igor, sorry, could I propose that we do the actual execution of this at the end of the call, because I don't think all 60 people watch.
Yes, that's a goal. We need to decide the expiration now. We need to decide if we are going to do in this call or not now, and I'm going to publish the transaction so you all can sign it. Okay.
Great.
And that one will come on Keybase, right?
Yeah, it will come on Keybase. So the first thing I want to show is my Ubuntu release, because this will make the compilation different. So I'm using 18.04. The next thing I want to show is the checksum of my WAST file for the system contract, which if you are on Ubuntu 18.04 and if you have compiled EOS with the core symbol EOS instead of sys, you should get this hash, right? We compared this the last time, and we discovered that the most common reason are those two for it to be wrong. Block 1 fixed the hard-coded paths that were there before, so now it's fine. And I'm gonna also check here my Node.js version, and I'm going to check my core symbol definition. So we have latest Node.js version, core symbol to EOS, and everything we need. So the step to generate yourself the upgrade system contract transaction is this. So you don't need to run this unless you want to verify. But if you do want to verify, please do not sign this transaction. Okay? All of us need to sign the same transaction that I'm going to send, because I believe somebody did sign this one where after they verified instead of the one Michael sent it last time, and then we got mixed signatures and it didn't work. So I'm going to generate this here, and I'm going to first rename this one as the official one, so I don't have it with a different name here. So I'm going to do contract official. Okay. So,
just to interrupt, did you guys see Dan just posted a message in the validation group that he has? They have a software update they want us to roll out. He needs a point of contact.
What?
In the validation MLG.
Invite him to the call.
I'll invite him in the
Dan, sorry. Okay. Before release details, a producer-only software update. But this is not about the contract, right? No. Okay. So I'm gonna edit this that I just changed, so we all can check this expiration was just generated using current UTC time. Okay. We don't need to change ref block number and ref block prefix. This is from typos, and then it's fine from now on until 9 hours ahead. So we cannot set this to more than 9 hours. We should set, if we have 15 block producers ready to go on this call, to 1 hour ahead. So I would make, like, for comfortable reasons, I would make like 14 plus 30, which means I cannot submit the transactions before 13.30, 13:30. Okay, so but it's fine since we are going to stay in this call for quite some time now. So before doing this, I wanted to go on the Zoom chat and please, we need 15 from the top 21 BPs to say that they are ready to do the upgrade now. So we can be sure that we have 16 ready. Oh, those are ready. No. Yeah, okay, that's nice, Eric.
And I am ready.
Eric is just saying he's number 16.
Okay, Alex was asking me why can't I send the transaction now before expiration? There's a instruction manual block 1 made. So yeah, that's nice if you can do this.
Okay. Is there any other steps we need to share with 70 people?
For now, I just want to explain what they need to check and what I checked on my system. And I wanna do a quick walkthrough on how to do the signature. After that, but I need to save this, so I just need to have 15 here, so I can define that's 14, 30. It's fine for expiration. Ready, so. For now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10. We need 5 more.
Igor, would it be possible to put those outputs you showed earlier into a GIST file so we could review them, the different SHAs and all that?
Yes, right. I'll do it right now while we wait for a little more.
Thank you.
So I'll just copy here so I don't. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
We also have the SHA of the WASM file.
If you want to, I can generate it, but I think. Good.
Looks like we need 2 more. Kedar, do we know if we have the other 8 top 21 BPs on the call? I thought I just heard Defang, so I think that.
I'm already ready.
You're ready? Okay. Oh, you're accounted for that.
So do we post the number of the schedule? Not sure. Number 21 ready means I'm 21st in the schedule or what?
No, it's block producer number 21. We're block producer 8 right now. Position in the top 21.
Okay. Good morning, Dan. Just making sure you saw this call is recorded and will be released in the short future, but not immediately, or it's not live streamed.
Looks like Charles has mentioned 21.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Hi, Dan.
Morning, Dan.
Morning. So who else on this call?
72 people.
Yeah, we have 15 ready to go. So seems to be fine to set the expiration time. Okay, to signing this, as the permission set here is use.io active. We don't want to use the block signing keys. We need to use the active keys for the for the producer. So, and we need to grab the chain ID correctly. I will paste the command there, so shouldn't be a problem. So what we're gonna do is, right, and this will ask for your private key on demand here, and you are going to grab your active key. Paste it here, and it will output the signature that you're going to paste on Keybase with your producer name by its side. I'm doing it now. And you are running this on the official TLX JSON. Okay. And the command to run it if you okay, paste the command and my signature on Keybase. And I'm gonna send the file too, so wait a second. Just need to read it.
So have we decided to do that right now, the whole thing, or?
Yeah, I set the expiration time to 14:30.
Yeah.
So we can do this after all the other topics in the call.
Okay, so what about going to the next topics in the call?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to just ship the file over Keybase and make sure everyone is fine with that. So
we're just going to add, as Igor pushes all of that on Keybase and people can start signing. Towards the end of the call, we should have all the signatures. We're adding an item to the agenda for Dan Larimer, who wants to share some information.
Guys, so Dan has just joined the call, so should we maybe pass to him to see what?
I just wanted to give a quick heads up. We will be releasing software update today. The idea is to fix a
רוצה להגיד
potential.
שלום? דן לרימר, רוצה להגיד לו שלום?
Guys, please mute if you're not speaking.
All right. So Block One will be releasing a software update later today. This update will include a soft fix for a bug we've discovered, the code. We'd like to roll it out to have the producers upgrade first, just as a protective measure for the community, and then after that rollout, we can release more details about a follow-up update that will be required of the system contract. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that was coming. We hope to have it all tested by within the next 8 hours.
Are you meaning Node.js or contracts?
This will be a Node.js update for producers, followed by a system contract update to fix some bugs there.
And both are required for mitigation of the issue?
Mitigation will be largely handled by the Node.js update, but the system contract update is also part of the mitigation effort.
Does this mean we shall not do this system contract update because we have to do it again in 8 hours?
I think you should practice it now so that we can find out if there's any problems with it, and then you'll repeat it again in 8 hours.
So we should start a test net and actually start practicing.
I think it'd be very good for the producers to have this down to like a science, so that like, if there is a a quick update that needs to be done to fix an emerging bug that we don't even know about yet, that it can be rolled out in a timely manner to protect everyone involved. So I'd say that the issue we found is not catastrophic in any sense. It's just a slight accounting issue with some of the resources that we need to address. And we'd like to, no one's really abusing it right now, but we'd like to get it rolled out before anyone decides to abuse anything.
Perfect. So I'd say we keep on track upgrading the main contract.
Yes, because what that's going to do is it's going to change the timer on the name auction bids and get that moving forward as soon as possible. We don't want to delay that because it's already been delayed by a couple days past when the name bids should have been there. One of the issues on the name bids that I've noticed that we should consider is I don't think a lot of people understand that there's only going to be one name sold per day to the highest bidder. And I see a lot of name bids on names for dust amounts that are never going to be the highest paid name probably for like a decade. So those people are basically burning their tokens out of their own ignorance of how the name auction system works. So we should probably both educate people more. Anyone who's responsible for tools, whether it's scatter or gray mass, should alert people to that. The Ricardian contract associated with the name bid should probably be filled out in greater detail to describe the timeline for that. And I'd like to propose that we have a minimum name bid of one EOS that we can, not now, but in the future, update the system contract to prevent people from placing dust bids on names for their own protection. We can leave it unchanged and people lock up tokens, but we should try to protect people from doing stupid mistakes if we can. Are there any questions for me?
Dan, can I just ask, is there a referendum contract coming from Block 1?
Not at the moment. We are growing as fast as we can to hire more devs, but there's other issues that are slightly higher priority on our plate. So we'd love to have help from the community in creating such a contract.
So we've started that. We've pulled together a group of people. Is there somebody from Block 1 that could work with us, even in a consulting role, on that?
I'd be available to answer some questions. I know Thomas Cox and I have talked extensively about the nature of it. Do you need technical, like programmer help, or do you need structural design help?
I'm not sure. So Thomas joined the subgroup yesterday, and at the moment we're just literally trashing through requirements to get it spec'd out. But
yeah, I think the biggest, most urgent, lowest hanging fruit thing that we can do is it doesn't even require a smart contract. It just requires an interface that will publish the ability to write messages into the blockchain and reply to people. So you can have a discussion thread between accounts actually on the blockchain. That will be critical going forward for dispute resolution around things like the frozen accounts that we had and all that evidence. Right now we have to have those discussions on platforms like Steam, but it should be possible with the right indexers of transactions to build up a database and present a Reddit-style forum of messages. So,
what sort of messages? People voting?
People just discussing. Say I want to express my opinion or reply on some topic, or an arbitrator wants to give their opinion. People should be able to speak on behalf of an account. And right now, there's a disconnect between people in real life talking and posting on Steemit and the actual account. How do we know that the same person? The only way we can actually know is if they sign the messages with their account, and there's no interfaces for doing that. And that can be done without writing any smart contracts at all, or at the very least a minimal smart contract to require every comment properly parented.
So just a convention on which account, even if it's a no-op, an account to which we're going to fetch the memo, right?
You don't even need a memo. Don't even use transfer.
Or some field that has a message, whatever the name.
The message would be like you could create the account eosio.forum, or even doesn't have to be ESIO. It can just be forum, and maybe make it 12 characters, and have an action by convention that is post with the ABI that describes here's the subject, here's the post ID, and here's the reply ID, and here's the body. And if we had that, then command line tools and or scatter and other things could easily allow people to post. Block explorers could easily aggregate it and present it very nicely. It'd be very low hanging fruit to get that up and running, which would then facilitate all official block producer communications. We can move that off of Steemit and we can move it onto here. So you can just go, and that's where you publish things when you have a message to the community.
If you have so you just listed a few fields there. If you have an idea for that, the design of the ABI, and you can post that over, I think that could be done swiftly.
I'll create an ABI and get that out to you guys as a proposal.
That'd be great. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions?
So how will you share that the update is ready with this group today, Dan?
I would like to have one person that we can talk to about secure issues and communications, who's then in secure communication with the other top 21, and they can roll it out. I don't know if this Zoom call is open to people that are not producers or outside, but there's 79 participants and there's 21 producers, so it's probably too big of a group to share security related items with. So if you guys can agree on who it is that we should interface with, then that'll make it easier for us to coordinate with you all.
So a couple of us are kind of suggesting Eric from EOS Sweden. So if he doesn't object, or anybody else objects, I'd suggest.
We should probably have two people, I guess, in different time zones.
Let's add Alex if possible.
Yeah, Alex and Eric.
Okay. Can you guys create a chat group on Telegram? Add me to it, the three of us. And then I will use that Telegram group to communicate with both of you simultaneously.
Okay, let's do that.
We'll have to coordinate with who's managing the mainnet repo as well, like Nathan James or whoever else, because that's where we're going to be deploying from, correct?
We should probably have a private GitHub repo where we can deploy fixes for the producers, for them to review if it's security related or precautionary, not necessarily hard forking. And then we can sync that up to the mainnet repo after the fact. But some of these things, when we check in the code, all of a sudden there's a window of time where anyone who's monitoring can say, what did they just fix? Quick, let me see how much damage I can do before the producers can get around to upgrading. And that's what we want to mitigate.
Yeah, definitely. I'm wondering if we have a mechanism to keep track of the top 21 and make sure they have access to that, because there's been some confusion in the past, people rolling out the wrong, tag, the wrong information. So it's just something we have to coordinate.
Yes. By the way, I'm very, very proud of all the work you guys are doing to coordinate. This collaborative approach is a new form of decentralization. It's very robust, and we're all keeping each other accountable for doing the right thing, and we're providing the best service for the community. I think that we need to, as a group, try to address some of the concerns that the press has about what's going on whenever there are bugs, and emphasize that we expect bugs, but we can respond and we fix them. And if anyone was damaged by the bug, we actually make them whole with some kind of processes in place. That's going to give us a resilience in the long term to be the most robust network out there. And It's all made possible by the type of collaboration we have right here on this call. So I'd like to thank you all.
Woohoo!
Hey, thank you, Dan.
Is there anything we can be doing better to help you all?
Referendum contract is a big priority.
What's that?
Any help for the referendum contract, and Sharif from Dublin has the lead on that.
Yeah, Dan said that they'd help out, so I will reach out about it as soon as we have the structure on it.
So the first step of the referendum contract is actually the forum for discussing the referendum. If we don't have a forum to discuss it, then people's opinions can't be properly assessed into the referendums.
Dan, can I just ask, are Block One planning to publish a roadmap at some point? So
yes, I had a call with Brendan to discuss our roadmap. I'll share a little bit about what we're thinking so that you guys know what's coming. We're building a wallet. The wallet is going to kind of be like Scatter initially. It's going to define an API that allows third-party developers to deploy contracts and interface with it. The difference from Scatter is that we're going to display the recording contracts, and that the recording contracts are going to be a big part of the interface and the usability of the wallet. So when developers build their applications, rather than just a confirmation, do you approve this transaction, and it being a bunch of gobbledygook data, it should be, do you approve this human readable agreement of what it is you're going to do with all the nuances of things, and then accept. The focus on recording contracts for every action is going to be very strong in what we're doing. So it's not just signing data and who knows what I'm agreeing to or what the implications are. So as developers build apps, they need to think from a usability perspective. How do I express what the user's agreeing to? And so that's going to be as a Chrome extension. But eventually, later this year, we'll have an iPhone app that will use the secure enclave and present the recording contracts and sign it accordingly. And if you're compatible with the Chrome extension, it's kind of like Web3 on Ethereum. You'll be compatible with the iPhone. And that will be hardware wallets, and it'll be super secure. So that's the roadmap on the wallet side of things. We are going to be adding some extra levels of security that don't exist on Ethereum currently. One of them will be domain validation. We will only allow apps that have bonded with the community and have been identified, so we can hold people accountable for the apps they create, to present and only request that the extensions sign the right transaction. We want to prevent phishing. We want to prevent lookalike apps. We want to make sure that people don't load up I don't know what the different Ethereum wallets are, but an Ethereum wallet in MetaMask, but it's a wrong domain name, and they end up transferring their tokens to someplace that they didn't expect. So that's protected in part by the recording contract, clearly outlining what the transaction is going to do, but also in part by us vetting the domain name. We also want to protect against DNS hacks. So you have to publish your IP address of your servers to the blockchain, and our wallet will make sure that the IP on the blockchain matches the current DNS resolving before it will sign. So we're going to take security and preventing theft and fraud and phishing very, very seriously as we're building everything out over the course of the next year. In fact, security and ease of use for the user will be a higher priority than increased performance. Just seeing the number of people that have had phishing attacks steal their EOS on Ethereum. We really want to get those standards in place, and then we can we can start to scale up performance. But otherwise, we're just in a hurry to have people's money stolen, and that's no good.
Really
What about the DEP browser that you mentioned today?
What's that?
What about the DEP browser?
Yeah, that's the iPhone app is the DApp browser, and it'll have an interface similar to that. And a DApp gets listed in the browser by being on the community bonded apps. So that's what I'm describing there when I'm describing those features, and that's what we'll be providing this year. On a slightly shorter term, we'll be releasing a Mac app that you can download to your MacBook Pro or your iMac Pro and have secure enclave signing. This will be good for exchanges or producers who want to make sure their active keys are in hardware. And that will just be a drop-in replacement for Kios, and you manage it like another Kios wallet, except it'll be hardware-based. So that should be available sometime within the next month. To be clear, we've already tested it and it works now. We just have to get all the signing keys and deploy a version that's properly signed, so that you can just download it and use it.
Dan, is there like a preview API so we can start preparing dApps that we're working on with the wallet API?
Yes, we're working on the preview. That's part of what the Chrome extension is. So our roadmap is Chrome extension using soft keys with the established API, and then our future iPhone app will have the same API. We've got that API internally. We're documenting it. We're testing it. We're already signing transactions on the iPhone through this API. So we're making progress on this, but before we actually deliver a wallet, we need to get the recording contract template engine and presentation ironed out, because the recording contract is almost like an interface specification language. It'll be based on Markdown and handlebars, similar to what we already have, with some HTML tag support. So we want to make sure that as developers, you have a lot of flexibility in how you present your contract to your users. So it's not just like a wall of text or something, because that is kind of the interface. The user should be able to see, oh, I recognize this contract. It should be well formatted, pleasing to the eye, as well as clearly explaining what's going on. I want to establish best practices, like above the fold, the very first thing they see in the contract is, this is what's going to happen, and then below the fold is all the fine print they can scroll through and approve. But we should start to take describing what's going to happen with every action very, very seriously. So whether it's RAM or delegation of bandwidth, all the edge cases, we need to document those up front. Does arbitration apply? Are there time delays associated? Is there risk of losing, like when bidding on names, all the risks of being outbid, the risk that you might never get your name and your funds might be locked forever, so you need to factor it in. All of those things need to be considered.
So Dan, do you plan on sending signatures of the recording contracts on chain?
So let's talk about some of the governance issues that have come up. If you're using the blockchain, every transaction has TAPOS. Every transaction is referencing the head of state of the chain, which means it's referencing the current ABI that's set on all contracts at the time you sign the TAPOS. And therefore, the transaction is incorporating those contracts right now. If anyone creates a wallet and they want to sign it, that wallet should be displaying the recording contract of the actions that the user is signing, so that the user understands those terms. And
Okay, so you assume it's already signed through a tick, 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 tick. At some point, you do sign it down the tree, right?
You sign a transaction which incorporates a hash of the block, which incorporates the state of the transaction. Yes.
Okay, so it is signed. Okay.
It's indirect but explicit,
Okay, cool.
and cryptographic in nature. But as a whole, we need to recognize that if you can't have two different groups of people operating on one blockchain under two different sets of rules, and we can't allow each person to bring their own assumptions and say, my assumptions are what I want them to be, and therefore everyone else needs to give me what I assume. We need to come to an agreement on what the Constitution means. We need to accept de facto the Constitution that's there is binding. The block producer contracts are binding. We need to take it very seriously that we both document and update the recording contracts to add clarity where necessary. There's a lot of empty recording contracts that don't even define terms or expectations. And then we need to hold people accountable to them. If we don't hold people accountable to the contracts, then the contracts basically lose any ability to enforce in the future. And establishing those precedents now, enforcing things now, send signals to the market and all participants that this rule of contract applies here, not rule of who has private keys, not rule of I didn't see it, therefore I didn't sign it. You had to seek out the blockchain. You had to seek out the ability to sign. You knew what you were doing, and there's been no attempt to hide the fact that there is a constitution. And so we can publicize it and so forth. But as a community, we need to do that because every action we take is now going to be a recording contract, and it's going to be a lot more formal than other blockchains, covering both the objective and the subjective edge cases. And that gives people greater security, greater confidence. They know what they're going to do. It forces developers to document the intent of their contracts when they write an action versus just leaving it buried in the code somewhere. And it allows non-programmers to understand what in the world they're signing. And so we can of course do better with disclosing and educating people what the terms are, but the terms are the terms. They're baked into the blockchain, and we need to enforce those terms as they're baked into the blockchain, because those who are using the blockchain are presumed to have used Kleos or a tool to read the contracts, to know what they're doing before they even apply their cryptographic signature. Who in their right mind would sign something without knowing what the impact of that signature would be? And that's where we can improve things, but consistently applying the intent of the contracts will be critical to the long-term success and trust that people have in the community. If sometimes we apply the contracts and sometimes we don't, that's a problem. On that note, there are a number of block producers who, at least at one point, I don't know what the current status is, did not have a website with the proper disclosures, have not done the things that are listed in the recording contract of register producer. So when you register to be a producer and solicit votes, you agree to those terms. And it's up to the community to, hey, you're in default of contract. And even if you're elected to the top 21 default in contract, the other 2/3 have the ability to deactivate that producer. Ideally after arbiters have determined that the producer is in fact in default of that. We need to start enforcing standards and not allow people to skirt the rules or flaunt the rules that we're trying to establish as a community. Because that just sets bad precedent, that sets, and then the abuse continues. So if there's anyone in the top, anyone who's getting paid and receiving a benefit as a result of being a block producer needs to comply, even the runner-ups. So if we don't know who you are and no one can even contact you, we should immediately deactivate that producer. And then if they can have a complaint, hey, why'd you deactivate me? Oh, great, we were trying to reach you. And now we can reactivate them or allow them to reactivate themselves because now we've reached them. It might be a brute force way of trying to communicate with someone, but we should not have these phantom producers who no one knows who they are collecting benefits from the community without delivering anything to the community. That's the community.
Pardon me. To your point, given the recent action that all top 21 producers have taken to blacklist the 7 accounts, we opened a claim against ourselves. So for anyone that is on the call that is a top 21 block producer who knows that you have not still done some of those things that are required per reg producer, it will likely come up in whatever process we are about to undergo with arbitration. So it is my advice that you go do that very soon before arbitration forces you or levies action against you.
Yeah, I would also like to establish a mindset that we don't, when it comes to the governance, we don't go about punishing people so much as trying to encourage people to come into and live up to what they've promised to do. So, all right, we'll disable your account until you comply with what you've agreed to. And then when you comply, we lift the thing. So restitution with the idea of that we don't want to be in this situation where we threaten like very harsh punishments against people for doing things, because that doesn't create a friendly environment. We should assume we're all gentlemen or ladies, as the case may be for Shios. We need to treat with each other with respect, with the understanding that everyone should have the intention of being honorable in the agreements that we're doing, and that everyone wants to be, and if they're not, then we need to try to understand why aren't you complying, and then resolve the dispute. And the reason we have arbiters is the 2 people with the intention of working together can agree to abide by a third party making a decision. The purpose of the arbiters is not to have some authority on high come down and act as God or king and force people to do things. We assume that the parties that have the dispute have already agreed that, yes, I'm going to be a gentleman, I'm going to cooperate with whatever this person decides, because they're helping resolve a dispute that the 2 people couldn't resolve through mediation or couldn't resolve otherwise. And anyone who does not have the intent to be a good actor, who acts in good faith and voluntarily complies with an arbitration decision, those parties are being malicious. They're not even, and we need to identify who's going to not voluntarily comply with an arbitrator's decision. And those people need to be removed from the community because they have no intention of working with us to reach consensus, and every intention of just doing whatever it is they can by force of their private key get away with. And that's not a culture we want to encourage. Are there any questions or concerns about anything I've said?
I have a question about what we should be doing inside of signature providers. The next thing that I'm actually going to be working on is Ricardian contracts inside of Scatter signature requests. And I'm wondering how you would go about that if you want to put the entire constitution alongside the action Ricardian, or just the Ricardian for the action?
Just the Ricardian to the action. The Constitution, you should probably have them sign before they do any action, and then you can just cache it. I'd actually be interested in working with you on having Scatter have the same API as what we're trying to build. So that people can use Scatter or they can use our app, and there's some standards of how you request that a third-party app provide a signature to an application.
So maybe it would be best just the first time that they import an EOS account to show them the Constitution, and from that point forward. Okay, I see.
Yes, exactly. That's how we intend to do it with our wallet.
Excellent, thank you.
There was another thing that we brought up today, that we had 2 representative, let's say Alex and Eric, in the chat we were mentioning, or I was mentioning, if we can have an Asian representative and that way we can help with translation if required. So, and also it just helps with another time zone. So you literally have the full coverage of the planet at your disposal. And it was almost a unanimous decision to mention Defang from US Asia. He's been really good at communicating the messages across different VPs. And so maybe you can have 3 representatives that you can ping off.
I'm fine with 3 representatives.
And then you have the whole world at your disposal, pretty much.
As long as they can speak English.
Oh yeah, Defang is really, really good.
All right.
He can.
Maybe Defang can look at his privacy settings for Telegram. I can't add him to the group.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can work out the communication, but I'm sure. So.
Good idea.
I want to ask about that. I was wondering if Block One can provide some escalation support to when production issue happen. Because last time when the chain froze, we as VPs, we didn't have the expertise to debug it and actually to fix it. So this has to go to Block One, and if you guys can offer some type of support for us, that will help us a lot.
Yeah, we're going to do our best to support the software generally and to make sure all users have the support necessary. So if you reach us through that channels, we're probably going to need to provide some other people. This past example happened in the middle of the night or very early morning for us. So a lot of the devs that are able to fix it were actually asleep at the time it happened. And our wives had to wake us up when that's how they got through to us. So we have to have more channels set up. So we're working on setting some of those things up internally, making sure that people have ways of being reached at all time, and that there's always someone who's available to be woken up in the middle of the night. So for now, the same channel we use to communicate with you, you can try to communicate with us back through that same channel. We'll add a few more Block One representatives to that channel.
I have one governance concern, and I don't think it will be resolved now, but I just want to highlight it for future discussions. The philosophy of no punishment has been made very clear, but we've also said that if a block producer or some other member of the community crosses the threshold of not wanting to cooperate, then we remove them from the community. So there's going to be we need to really focus on defining how we create that threshold.
I agree. And part of the punishment is, in addition to making the victim whole, you need to make everyone who is involved with resolving the dispute whole. That means the arbitrators, all the block producers who had to spend time. And we should try to make sure that bad actors can't get like a DDoS attack by, all right, it didn't cost them anything because they just made the victim whole and therefore they didn't profit or loss, but it did cost everyone else things. So when I say no punishment, I don't mean that the attacker shouldn't lose money as a result. They, if someone's requesting arbitration, it should be on the order of a couple $100 an hour of everybody's time associated with resolving that dispute. And our issues that are less than that shouldn't even be considered for arbitration under their current process.
You've also raised the possibility of booting out persistently bad actors who show no willingness to cooperate.
Yes.
That goes beyond restitution.
So booting out basically means we freeze their account. Basically, until they agree to voluntarily comply with the rules, they don't have standing to, we don't have to provide them service if they're not in compliance. So that's not we don't take their assets and sell them off. We just stop providing service to blacklist accounts, for example, until they're brought into compliance. But we should always have a path for someone to come into compliance. So if there's a judgment that says, hey, you've done X, Y, and Z, pay these people back, cover the cost of the arbitrators, or unfreeze your account and you can rejoin the community in good standing. We should make sure there's always that path that focuses on restoring people with good faith rather than just, hey, we don't like you, we're going to take your $100 million account and have a good life. That's not a good, no one will feel safe. We need people to feel like my money is safe as long as I'm willing to comply with the terms of the contracts, and that the arbiters make decisions based on restoring all parties, including the block producers and other parties who had to participate in resolving the dispute.
Thank you.
That creates an upward limit on the cost or the penalty associated with bad behavior.
Hello. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Please continue. Sorry. Just sorry. You first. Go. You first. Sorry.
Do you have any comments on the current amount of backup block producers we have based on the vote distribution?
I missed the first part of that sentence.
So do you have any comments on the current number of backup block producers that we have?
What is the current number that we have?
Probably about 30.
30 backups?
Yeah.
I think that's more than enough. 30 backups is enough to replace everyone in the top 21. We should never have to replace more than 7 at a time or we risk Byzantine failure. My only comment is upon reflection. Now, the number of 30 votes was decided when we thought there would only be 21, so that you'd be able to approve everyone plus have a few extras that you can approve even though they're not getting paid. It should be possible for someone to approve everyone who's getting paid plus a few others who aren't getting paid. So if we have 30 standby plus 21 and we have 50 total, then the number of votes per person needs to be increased to accommodate that, or we need to raise the threshold, one or the other. But when anytime you have a situation where the number of votes is less than the number of people that are receiving pay, the approval voting system starts to skew in favor of large stakeholders and can be more.
That only applies if everybody makes or casts all of their votes, right? So
if people need the ability to cast all their votes, let me put this in another perspective. Say Block 1 wanted to vote for everyone who we believe is in compliance with the contract. Like that's the only criteria is you've done everything. If you haven't, but we don't want to bias the vote other than to say these are the people who are in good standing according to us. We should be able to vote for 50 people and let the community be the ones that are making the decision of who's in the top and who's not. But right now, if we were to cast our vote, we could only cast for 30, which means that we'd have more influence of who the top 21 are than would be right. So that's just an example of why you want to be able to apply approval voting to all of them. So Block 1 can say, we approve of these 50 people being block producers and or providing services, versus having to say, we approve of these people, but because we only have 30 votes, we can't approve of this other person, even though we would approve of them, we just don't have a vote to cast for them.
So what we're seeing in the community, Dan, is that a lot of the large token holders are not voting for even close to 30. So it does skew. So even though let's say we did increase it to 50 or whatever the number may be, can you comment on how we could encourage the large token holders to vote for more?
Education. They need to understand what happens if they don't vote for more. And the security of the network depends upon them raising the threshold of how many votes are required to get into the top. And if they only vote for one, well then, okay, you got one guy in there, but now you can have a bunch of bad people elected that can get more than 1/3. So if they want to prevent an attack, they want to make sure that they've approved of at least 2/3 of the producers, and ideally more in case not everyone agrees with their selection of the top 2/3, so that they know that the network is secure. If you're only voting for one producer or 3 producers, you're not even exercising enough influence to guarantee that an honest 2/3 majority is elected. So that's an education thing. I think it would be wise to have a channel where we try to recruit the large token holders to participate in the channel so that they can get these messages, or maybe even a mailing list. But anyone who's not voting or approving of at least 15 is leaving the network vulnerable to Byzantine failure.
Dan, Eugene here. On security of a blockchain, can we have a neutral party to do kind of audit of BP infrastructure and maybe some penetration testing and provide, report, maybe even anonymously?
I think it's up to each block producer to voluntarily welcome those types of things. And then if they all pick the same third party, that third party can provide a similar report for everybody, but they could pick different parties to do it. I don't think we want to have a monoculture of this one firm did it and all the producers did it the same way and therefore they're blind to a particular vulnerability. I think we want diversity in infrastructure and auditing.
Dan, let me ask a question. Of course, we are support of the ECAF things, but we noticed this ECAF are not authorized by even one token holders, directly or indirectly. So basically, we suggest, for now, the verdict from the ECAF is just a suggestion to all the BPs, and all the BPs should, take this suggestion into serious consideration and move forward, and maybe afterwards, but no jurisdiction in that case.
The purpose of arbitration is to render an opinion, not to render a ruling or a binding thing. It's up to the rest of the community to respect those opinions as they've agreed to. Unless, but it's also up to the rest of the community to judge whether or not the ruling was made in good faith. So it's kind of a jury nullification kind of thing, where the ECAF has evidence, rendered an opinion, and so that the producers don't have to independently do it, so that the community doesn't have to independently do it. But anyone who does want to take the time to independently evaluate the evidence should not be compelled to act in a way that's incongruent with it. Because that's how we have checks and balances, and we don't create a system where we've got 4 people that can render any ruling they like and now everyone else must bow down before them. That's not what I had intended to create. That's how today's systems work. We want a system of checks and balances where everybody knows that everybody has agreed to respect arbitration rulings, and therefore the good actors will follow those rulings as long as they have no reason to believe the arbitration was in bad faith.
I think Denny's question about this was about what is the source of authority for ECAF? Why does this ECAF have any standing? Because there has not been any voting from the member base for them.
The source of authority is the fact that ECAF is mentioned in the Constitution, that's incorporated into the system contract that everybody's interacted with. That's where its authority comes from. That's if we all recognize them as having authority, they have the authority. If we say they don't have authority, then we say, well, who does? And so someone's got to claim it. We've all kind of got to conclude. But ultimately, at this stage, the block producers need to decide, has ECAF been reasonable? Are they following a due process? Are they being objective in the evidence? Are they being transparent in what's going on? And if they are, then I see no reason not to use their opinion as a Schelling point, a point of focus for the consensus, until such time as a new Schelling point can be established, because now we maybe have a direct vote on some process, and we've got more on-chain governance features that we believe have stronger influence. But this is all about cooperation to reach consensus. ECAF provides an element where they're not block producers, so they don't have block producer biases, and they can render one opinion. And block producers would do well to recognize these opinions to maintain community support. The only reason I could see for a block producer to ignore the opinion is if they had strong moral conviction that the opinion was wrong and that the community would side with them. Because at the end of the day, the community is going to be looking at the opinion and the process that was employed, and they're going to decide how to vote based upon that. And I think it's important that we do have a process. ECAF is filling it. Nothing is perfect at this stage. The code's not perfect. The Constitution's not perfect. The recording contracts aren't perfect, and the arbitration's not perfect. But that should not stop us from trying to do our best with what we have and constantly improving on it. So I think ECAF is the best that we have at the moment, and we should try to respect that.
Dan, I understand ECAF is the best we have, but do you think this ECAF, the ECAF with this name, is the ECAF we will have the best? And actually, I think we are facing some constitution crisis because this ECAF are not authorized by not even one token holder, as said before. So in that case, we should nominate someone just like how we nominate justice in the Supreme Court.
I would view the current ECAF as like the appointed block producers. Their job is to fill the role until we can actually get a community process in place, and then they should step down. So no token holder approved the appointed block producer that bootstrapped the network, yet we still went with it. And I think that's sort of the view, is somebody has to step up and do it until such time. And as long as they're being reasonable, if they ordered block producers to take money from one person, give it to another without any objective evidence whatsoever, then we would be right to ignore them. They don't have, we're not trying to enforce contracts by might. We're trying to enforce contracts by gentlemen agreeing that, hey, there would be a process. And right now, ECAF, the one that exists, is in the Constitution. Everyone has agreed to this Constitution by virtue of using the blockchain launched by the appointed block producer. The appointed block producer that bootstrapped the network put in place ECAF. And if you don't like ECAF, then launch a new chain that doesn't have ECAF in place and has something else in place. I think the ECAF has been consented to by the token holders by virtue of activating a chain with ECAF mentioned in the Constitution.
Then, sorry to interrupt. The signatures are fading again. Is Shiti from Yos Argentina or Mini on the call?
Yeah, we are here. Let me check it.
Okay, thank you. We need to see if anyone used the wrong key. Oh, I didn't want this to happen again. It started to get hard.
16 minutes left.
Can you send me again the transaction with all the signatures?
Yeah, I pasted all the signatures on Keybase, and I added the transaction JSON too.
When you sign, also include the public key that you signed with. That way people know what it should resolve to. We can verify the signatures map to that public key. And that way the other producers can help identify who didn't sign with the right key if that's the problem.
Yeah.
So there's two problems: either you sign the wrong JSON or you sign with the wrong key.
Exactly.
So all of us ship in the public key and the information once more in Keybase.
It might be the type of thing where having a script that you can run and you just input your private key and it spits out the right thing, give everyone the same script. Might facilitate making this easier.
We already have one.
The other option is to use the multi-sig contract to propose the change and have everyone approve it on chain. And then you don't have these expiration deadline issues.
But then wasn't there an issue with doing the multiple actions at the same time, set code and set ABI with the multisig?
I'm not aware of that issue.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware too, but that is written on the wiki. So
okay,
that's why we decided to do it this way, because
multi-sig would be way simpler if it's possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If multi-sig is not working for some reason, let's try to document the reason why and get the process done, because that was the intent. And that's what we tested prior to releasing 1.0, is that we could use multi-sig to do this. So it's surprising to me if there's problems, what the nature of the problems are.
Well, let's try that right now then.
We have 15 minutes for this one, and we have Chitty looking at the signatures. So
because the multi-sig contract will make it clear who actually authorized it, and everyone can post the transaction, and we can see exactly what's going on, and make it easier to debug things than the manual signature process that you have going on right now.
We could also set up a monitor for that so we can see it in real time. Watch it.
Yeah, and then the community can see what's about to happen.
Okay, so we should do multisig, because we just decided this way because in the wiki was describing that it is difficult to propose atomic transaction with multiple actions on the multisig. So that was the reason.
Yeah, we are actively working on cleaning up the documentation. The wiki will be deprecated soon, so don't rely on the wiki. There's the other documentation portal that has more accurate information. If you need, if you guys can't figure out how to do that, we can have someone here provide an example of how to do that with the script that they did when they tested it. Because we actually tested going through launching it, electing block producers, and upgrading the system contract through the multi-sig contract. We tested that entire process prior to 1.0.
Dan, do you know when the EOS file system will be available?
Oh, no,
okay.
Okay, just wrap this up. So then, can you provide us with the script to use it for the multisig creation?
I will talk to the dev who created the test to prove that it works. Ask them to provide a script for you guys to use. Get that to you in a bit.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else before I go?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Great work, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, what about the other items on the agenda? No?
So there was a motion on the chat to push it to tomorrow so that we focus on the system contract upgrade with the team, get that done, get the upgrade ready, and tomorrow we'll keep moving on the agenda.
So we will reconvene tomorrow again at 1300 UTC. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yes.
And maybe I can suggest that some of the agenda items are worked in subgroups before the next meeting so that we come up with an update rather than a full-blown discussion on these items as much as possible.
Second makes sense.
So
Yes.
invite people to your subgroup in the Telegram channel and try to make things move forward, and then we get agreement during the call. Thank you very much, everyone. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers, guys.
May I ask the last question?
Yep.
May I ask, does the ECAF has the jurisdiction now, or just like the BM said, it's just opinion?
So maybe we can take this offline, but the short is that if there is mutual consideration with more than two parties or more than one party, then I think that we can agree that there is an agreement there. Therefore, it would be valid de facto. But maybe we can take this offline and discuss a bit more if anyone has confusion around this.
Do not ask the question now. One question I had, Rick, is if we were should supporting nodes who supported that action actually open arbitration against ourselves as well?
I think that, and even though it's not explicitly stated in Reg Producer to open arbitration against yourself when performing an action, I would recommend that it is a good tradition or a good measure to consistently follow, at least in these early days, to have good documentation.
Rick, before you finish, to specifically answer your question, Steve, no, I do not think it is a good idea for any non-top 21 block producer to file a claim against yourself, because there was actually no action taken that happened on chain. Files could have been added or removed, but to no effect, right? So that's the only reason why I'd say no.
Okay, so may I ask another question? In a specific case, if there is a verdict reached by the arbitration, the ECAF, and we think is as a BP, we think is not appropriate. So if we don't execute it, and can we say is a break of the law, or other BP maybe kick out us out of the top 21 BPs?
If we were to ignore what we consider a valid arbitration, I don't know if we're calling it a ruling now based on what Dan said, but opinion, we'd be entering into what would be considered a constitutional crisis, so that the bodies are disagreeing and the machine comes to a halt.
Should we think we should launch another process to nominate all the members in the ECAF now, make them legal, do some legislation things to make them legal, to make them have the power, and authorized by we are elected by the token holders, something like people, and we can nominate them, make them have the power.
I think in the future, what would be preferable is that arbitration forums be private entrepreneurial enterprises that basically exist on the support of their reputation and the fairness of their rulings. But for right now, as Dan said, we're bootstrapping this. Anyone can. There's a Telegram. It's a very narrow bottleneck right now to nominate people, and that's understood. That's difficult. It's not the best. But there is a way to nominate, and so if you have someone that you want to nominate, go right ahead.
It's not what we want to nominate. I just want to know, we should nominate the member in the ECAF now, and make them have the power. But for now, we like things. If we get a verdict and I refuse to execute, that is constitutional crisis.
Could the block producers issue a statement to say that they recognize ECAF and the current constitution?
I'm not sure that you would need to do that, because by partaking in the current chain and by doing transactions on the chain, the block producers are effectively, because the Constitution does recognize ECAF, the block producers de facto are recognizing ECAF. I don't know why we have to go a step further.
The Constitution recognizes the ECAF, not this ECAF. The ECAF under the Constitution. Yeah, these are two things. You know, if I launch a new ECAF,
what Danny's saying is completely correct. It simply recognizes a name, and it could
exactly.
Anything.
This is what I'm talking about.
It is not saying that this group is ECAF. It's saying that there is a group called ECAF that would be appropriate. It could be anyone could stand up and call themselves ECAF.
Yeah. One thing, Robert, is that ECAF did not. The ECAF, the group, was created before it was mentioned in the Constitution, if I remember.
But that ECAF was created by an unknown group who have no authority.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So actually, I would take what Sharif said and I would just reverse it. If any block producer wants to issue a statement that they do not recognize it, go ahead. Otherwise, I agree with Eve that it's an implicit consent just by continuing to operate on chain and reg producer.
So shall we just consider the verdict of the inter-ECAF with authorized by any token holders just a suggestion to us? We can do it in the good faith, and maybe the ECAF can endorse it. The verdict is just endorse the things, but there's no jurisdiction. There's no enforcement to us.
Denny, I think we could argue whether you're technically right or not for a very long time. But I do want us all to consider that we are in a very vulnerable and fragile state. We are working with a spirit of governance and not a formal process of governance. So it requires that we all do our best to operate toward that end, to respecting the spirit of the governance that we're building. So I would just say, maybe you're right, but just remember that.
Okay, but democracy is a word for our government instead of all others. For now, we create a monster. If everybody should follow it, it's a monster without control. Nobody authorizes the power sources, from nowhere, and some people just jump. Hey, you have to follow my order. That's we cannot bear it. We can take it as a good suggestion and we will execute if it's really in the good faith, but we cannot. Take the responsibility. We will execute all the order from them. That's we cannot follow.
Hey Denny.
Here.
Denny, sorry. Which block producer are you with?
Hobipu.
Hobby. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I would echo maybe what Kevin said, that if there are any block producers that believe that right now ECAF, the current ECAF, so not just the acronym, but the current people within ECAF and what we have as what I believe all on this call recognize as ECAF right now, okay, that group of people, if you do not recognize them, then I would think, I guess you could do a statement on that and see if the community follows.
Or just ignore their
or just not do anything.
You don't need a statement. It's all on chain.
Yeah.
Do it or don't.
I just consider we will do the order if you're in really good faith, and we can consider it as a suggestion, but we cannot do it as an order or a verdict. We cannot execute all the orders. I believe we are in the same comment. Sorry.
Yeah, and sorry, just some words. There was no verdict. There wasn't any
ruling or
investigation or ruling. No, there is nothing. Remember, it's just an opinion. And I know what you're trying to say. I just want to be careful because it's not like a common law system exactly, or any other systems that we've probably grown up in. So this is a bit different, and we just need to sort of navigate our way through these literal uncharted waters.
You're right. And Dan was very clear that ECAF does not render verdicts. So yesterday I made a video and I did use the word verdict. I'll have to change my lingo. It is an opinion. And then users can choose to follow that opinion or not. Constituents will then change their voting patterns depending on what they believe as well, right? So, and because right now, like Rick said, we don't really have the precedent. We're establishing the precedent. So it is kind of muddy waters, and we are going through this. It is not easy right now.
So we might, so this is my our statement. We might follow the opinion, or we may, you know, if it's really good, we will follow it. But if they're bad, we may not follow it. That's what we think about. That's all. Thank you.
Yep. Certainly.
And he also made the point that he made the point that you can always open up another arbitration case with a different arbitrator against that arbitrator. So if it wouldn't just be that we do nothing and say, sorry, I'm just not going to do it. We have an action to take and say, we're doing nothing, and we have a point for why we're doing nothing. We're doing this in the best interest of our constituents, the people who have voted for us, and we're going to open in a proper arbitration with someone else. And again, even this idea of an arbitrator, we don't have to use ECAF. Like if Rick and I wanted to do one, we could agree on some other arbitrator, and that would be binding according to the Constitution. So this is a kind of a default if someone doesn't specify an arbitrator. And something in the Constitution, it actually says every contract should actually define who's going to be the arbitrator for this situation. And if we don't do that, then it defaults to the default. So I think this is muddy waters, but I mean, I wrote a post recently about this, and now I have a little more clarity to say this is their opinions. And basically, if you use the chain, you're bound by it. Whether we like that or not, that's the answer we got. So that's what we have to work with.
And I think that's a really clear, important distinction, and a really good point that you made, Luke. The idea was that when you're doing a contract, both parties are able to assign which arbitrator they'd like. That can be somebody off-chain. It doesn't need to be, as long as both of them agree. And then if they didn't put anybody, that's where ECAF comes in as kind of that base. That's the default. But it doesn't mean it needs to be ECAF.
No, but for constitutional or block producer agreement issues, it is ECAF only. You don't have the option of going elsewhere.
I'm not.
Yeah, I suggest we continue this offline.
Yeah, lots to discuss amount of time on this one, I think.
And we lost some BPs already because we said goodbye to everybody. So
No, nothing important. We just agree or disagree.
the agenda for the next meeting, and everybody can prepare this way. All right.
For clarity, are we going to publish this and when? Because it was recorded. Someone recorded it. Are we going to wait a few days? Or
So we had a discussion about when and how we would publish in the agenda today, which is postponed to the meeting tomorrow. So I recommend we do not publish before we've had that discussion.
Thank you.
Should I drop my extensive notes in Keybase, and if so, when?
I think it's safe in Keybase.
Yeah, you can drop your notes whenever, Roman.
There's nothing.
They're long. You'll be impressed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Roman.
I'm always impressed.
Thank you, Roman.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Guys, can we start tomorrow's call with the third bullet point from today?
Please, let's work all together on the agenda for the next call. Okay, so everybody voice what you want to see in the agenda, and we can try to have the perfect agenda ready at least 12 hours before the meeting. So I'll suggest the next meeting with your consideration. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Nice reminder, Dave.